AA batteries, you're gonna have to listen to my voice.
No, I'm fixing it a different way.
Okay, our speaker guy is fixing it.
That's speaker guy.
Since January, we've had nothing but a bunch of technical stuff trying to teach you how to be a better beekeeper. And I hope some of it is working. As soon as we get to July, August, September, October, we're gonna be doing that again, more technical stuff to try to make you a better beekeeper. So I thought for a little break, we would do something fun tonight. And not so much about how to keep your bees, but how to do with what they're giving you as far as your products. If you haven't already stopped by, we have a lot of things over here on the counter. Oh, I'm not gonna hold that.
You don't have to, I can't hear you.
Can y'all hear me fine?
No, not your mic. Huh?
You were back there just a few minutes ago. Couldn't hear Terry. Yeah, this be working.
Okay. I really don't think you can hear me any better, can you?
Sounds very good. Yeah, you're saying awesome. I couldn't hear you before.
Okay, as I was saying, I hate this thing. I'm gonna try talking real loud. If somebody raises a hand they cannot hear me, then.
You're on the wire.
This is a bad crowd.
Okay.
All right, now I'm talking my own food, and I hate this thing. Anyway, Ann and I brought some products that we do in our house. Some of it is some that we sell. Some of it's stuff that I just experiment with and do and tend to use ourselves. But I'll go over that in a little bit right towards the end. If you haven't gone up and sampled it, then you certainly go give it a try. Without anybody shouting out, how many people know what that is? Oh, I'm disappointed. There should have been more. How many people, without shouting out, know what the name of it is? Oh, yes. It's called a scale, and that's what we used many years ago. In fact, I used to work with a Danish company, and the fellow I worked with over there said his grandson was still using those, about 40 or 50 of them, and that's the way he raised his bees, is working with scales. But anyway, what I'm going to try to talk to you about tonight is a little fun stuff. As I listened and watched you raise your hands, some of you have harvested, maybe you're going to harvest some more, or you haven't harvested yet, or maybe you're in the middle of it. I'm right there with you. I've done some harvesting. I've got, I guess, one final harvest for wildflower, and then it's harvesting the sourwood. But since we're doing all this, there's a lot of stuff we can do with the products we're getting out of the hives. And I know we have some good new beekeepers this year, so maybe you'll can enjoy some of this, because I'm also going to talk about how to harvest and some tips the way I do things. And sometimes the way I do things, the book's going to take a different way. I have tried the book way, but I found sometimes the way that I'm doing things works a little better for me. And if you want to try it out, maybe it will for you. But with that, let's get started here. And so what are some of those products that we're talking about? And I'm going to have trouble getting this in and out, in and out. Anyway, but we got honey that we look at. We've got wax, which we can make a bunch of things with, and we look at that. We also get pollen. We get propolis. We get royal jelly. And, of course, there's pollination. Now, the four in red, I'm not going to go over to in any fashion, because the program itself is long enough, and I know everybody wants to get home and see that debate tonight. So I'm trying not to be late. But as I end, if anybody has any questions about those four products, I'll be glad to address your problems the best I can. So with that, let's get started. So what we're looking at here is, of course, we've got extracted honey, we've got cream honey, you've got infused honey, we have cold honey, and then we get into cosmetics. We've got some types of lotion bars, lip balms that are really fun to make, and also candles, and I'm going to talk about all of these as we go along with the products there. So let's look at that first. That's harvesting honey. Let's see how we get our honey from our bees. So first, you can use a fume board, and I like these at the end of the year when I'm going to take all my boxes. When I get into the first week in July, all of my honey supers come off, and bees don't get to see them until next spring. So everything comes off of me, and that's the time that I usually use the fume board. More times than not, I won't use that or in the middle of the season in the different harvests I do. But what you do with this fume board, it's actually just like a telescope cover that's telescoping over the hive. But what this one does is it goes right along the edge of the box. And here it has felt there, and maybe 2 or 3 layers of it. And you use some of these chemical products. There's some that's quite harsh. I like the honey robber best. In the hot weather, it's easier on the bees, and it's going to be a little easier on you. There are some other products out there, and some of them are quite strong for you and the bees. But basically, and you need a good warm day. This is not going to work probably under 80 very good. You've got to pretty much have a day that's in the mid-80s, and good sunshine will make it a lot better. But what you basically do is take this chemical and you spray some on there, and it doesn't take an awful lot. A little bit will go a long way. And you'll put that down on the top of the super that you want to take square away. You leave it there for about 45 seconds, maybe a minute, and you'll hear the bees humming like crazy. Once they do that, then what you want to do is turn this thing canted so that all 4 corners have about 2 inches that are open. And the bees are going to come flying out those 4 corners. If you don't do that, unfortunately, a lot of them are going to get stuck up here and might not make it, and they're going to be difficult to work with because once they get on that felt, it's hard to get them off. But if you'll turn it after about 45 seconds to a minute, all the bees will come flying off. They won't get caught on your felt. What doesn't come out of these 4 corners will go down into the brood boxes or the supers below that. So this is a good way to do something like that. If I'm just taking 1 box, I really don't like to use this product. And early in the spring, a lot of times it's not warm enough to get a good reaction from that. So what I normally like to work with is beescapes. They're my favorite way to do things as far as harvesting honey. Basically, the way that's set up is, of course, we're going to take this particular application. This is looking at the bottom, which goes down towards the brood box. But this is like a little maze. The bees has got to come out of the super through this hole and into this maze. Once they go through that maze, they have a difficult time finding their way back up. So that way you get all the bees to escape down in the lower box. Now, the way that works is, if I wanted to take this top box, I put this bee escape right under it. With this being pointed down, as I said, towards the brood box. I don't mind taking 2 of these at a time. Normally what it takes is about 24 hours per super to get them off. Anyway, it takes about 24 hours per brood box, per super, to get the bees out of there. I don't like to do it more than two brood boxes at a time, because now I'm sitting there, let those sit up there a little over a day and a half, close to 2 days. And around here, especially in this area, you have to worry a lot about hive beetles. Once I get my honey off of the hive, I like to have it extracted within 4 days. Now, I've heard Bob Benny on some of his programs. Of course, he's a little further north. He's got a little cooler weather. Maybe his hive beetle problem is not near as bad as ours is. But I've seen him in some of the videos. He'll put these under 5 boxes of honey and come back in 5 days and get them, and he doesn't seem to have a problem. But I'm just a little afraid to do it here in John, Georgia, because from 1 year to the next, my hive beetle population just will not allow it. So the maximum I'll take is 2 boxes at a time. Normally, this is what I normally, and I don't just do one harvest. I normally harvest 5 or 6 times a year. I start off about the 1st of May, and then every week or a week and a half, I pull a harvest. And I'll tell you why a little later on. There is a reason behind it, several reasons. But that's why I use these beescapes, because I'm only taking usually 1 or 2 boxes per hive. And it works a lot better than having to work with that fume, because it is just really bad. If you've got a smaller application, of course, you can just brush the bees off of the frame. If you want to take 1 or 2 frames, I'm going to try that. If you just want to take 1 or 2 frames, then that's the way to go. And of course, once you take the 1 or 2 frames, you want to put a couple of empties in there, because it's just going to be a waxing if you don't. but you can also do that in a smaller application. I see a lot of people that like to use this blower. It's a little harsh on the bees. It's a weak blower, and it'll certainly get your bees out of there, but they get right back in there really quick. The only beneficial thing I see with this leaf blower, sometimes with the fume board or even the bee escape, there might be 10 to 25 bees left in there that some people want them all the way out, like my wife. You can't have one single bee left in the box before you take it. But I mean, 10, 25, something like that, the hive's never going to miss them. But anyway, a good way to get those last 25 out would be a leaf blower, and then they'll move out and you can go on. But this is the way that more commonly you will take your boxes off of the hive. A lot of you have already done this. Some of you, as I see, will get ready to. I would say harvesting honey. When is honey ripe and ready to harvest? That's where I differ a lot with the books that are out there and tell you what to do. Of course, what we're trying to achieve that our honey, before we move it out of the beehive, is at least 18.5% water content. Depends on the nectar you're working with. Some nectars will tolerate 19, even 20, 21%. It has to do with the sugar makeups. But in this particular area, you better stay with 18.5 to have a safe solution. Otherwise, your honey has a natural yeast in it, and your honey can ferment, and that's the reason we're worried about the water content. Preferably, I like to get my honey around 16 to 17% water content. It's a lot thicker, richer tasting honey. If you ever get yours there, try it out, then you'll see what I'm talking about. And I don't like leaving it up to the bees. And let's move forward a little bit. Of course, unpacked honey can be higher in water content, as I said, but an easy way to take care of that is reducing the water content with a dehumidifier and fan in a room. You can use a very small room in your house, like your hash bath or something like that, if you only got a few boxes. I have a room set up where I can put a few many boxes in there with dehumidifiers and a fan, and I reduce the water content in my honey. When I'm taking honey, I more or less pull this and this. This is what I prefer to have. I don't like to see more than 50% capped honey. I don't like to leave it up to my bees to determine what my water content is. I don't know about your bees, but my bees do not have a refractometer, and that's how I tell how much water is in it. But I love to take frames when they look just like this. I have to uncap a lot less. It's much easier to work with, and then I can control the water content. In this frame, I can do nothing with the water content. Capped honey cannot be reduced in water content. I have to take it just the way the bees gave it to me. So that's why I don't like to get it that way. I have in years past, when we have a very rainy season, very humid year, I have had uncapped honey at 19 and 20%, and I just don't like leaving it to the bees. So this is what I look for, this and this. It's a lot less effort to uncap, and I can get it to the water content I want to get. So moving forward, as I said, I usually do this. Under 50% humidity reduces the water in the honey. Over 50% humidity was going to add honey to it, I'm going to add water to it. So what I usually do is pull my room down to around 25 to 30% humidity. Normally, if I'm putting honey in there that happens to be 19, 20%, I give it a couple of days and I'm at 16.5, 17% water content, just where I want. It helps to have the room a little warmer because if you've got a big dehumidifier, it's going to warm the room up if it's a small room. So you've got to get the temperature as well as the water content, and all of this honey that is not capped is going to be reduced in its water content, so that way you can control it. Easy to do and not a total lot of effort. Now, this year I'll have to admit, you have to watch this. This year it has been very low humidity throughout the whole harvesting season, at least in my area. I have pulled most of my honey is sitting at 16 to 17%. I did have one small batch that had 18.5 and one 19. I went in there, and of course normally I just sit it in there and I crank the humidifiers up and get everything going. Luckily, I went back in there before the night and checked the water content. Everything was at 16.5% water content already with the uncapped honey. So I just got the dehumidifiers off real quick, and I could uncap the next day. So this year has been a very dry year. It just depends. You cannot just say, okay, maybe it is and maybe it's not. And that's why everybody needs to own a refractometer. And that's what this is right here. I know there you can go to your Man Lakes and those people like that and pay $85, $90 for them. Or you can order them online through Amazon for about $20, $21. They're just as good, guys. I've got one of each. And Rodney, you still got 2 for sale?
I've already sold them.
So, get them for $10. That was a deal.
Yep.
Maybe you'll order some more.
I'm thinking about doing it for next year.
But anyway, for such a little cost, everybody that's going to harvest honey should have a refractometer. Yes, ma'am.
And we have that with the equipment. The plug has that with the 2
Yeah, we have 2 that you can go to the library and check out if you want to use those. But, you know, I think everybody works with Amazon and for $20, $25, you can get one of those, and they work as good as the expensive ones. The only thing you might have to do is with this little cap right here, you might have to take it off and calibrate it with that, but you olive oil, and it'll tell you, like, you know, right what to do. You know, how to do that. But anyway, that's what I like to do. The books tells you to make sure you don't pull your honey till it's all capped. Humbug. I don't like to go that way. And of course, several ways to extract your honey. If you're just going to pull a few and you're using wax foundations, you can do the crush and strain method. Takes about 2 or 3 days after you crush it up for all your honey to drip out into a bucket there. But be surprised who actually does that. And I'm not going to go there. But anyway, otherwise you can get an extractor. When you're working with an extractor, there are the radial kinds like this, where all the bottom frames are pointing inward. Sometimes if you get with the smaller ones, with 2 and 4 frame ones, they'll be sitting sideways, and they're not radial, and you have to actually flip them to get the other side emptied out. But they're a lot cheaper to do that. Once you're doing this, though, you're going to need an uncapping application. You're going to have a uncapping tape, and that's not to scrape across your hive. You actually lift. You go under your wax and lift it up. Under your wax and lift it up. You don't scrape it off. If you scrape it, yeah, it's going to open up the cells, but you're going to get a lot of capping wax into your honey, and it's going to clog up your filter with that. Moving on, then of course you're going to need another uncapping tank, which is like this right here. As you lift with the uncapping knife, as you lift your cappings off, it's going to fall into this top apparatus. And then, of course, what's going to happen, your wax is going to stay up here, your extra honey is going to drip down here, and then you can go ahead and bottle that up as well. And we also have 2 of those, 2 uncapping tanks that you can also work through the library and check out. What is that, Lily? Normally, what, $25 deposit?
It's 20.
20.
I think we stayed with 20, didn't
Okay.
we?
$20 deposit, and you can check out an extractor, and we have everything that goes along with that. We have the refractometers and the uncapping tank. And of course, you'll probably honey out of that. Once you use an extractor, you need to work with some type of filter with that, and or not filter, but strainer. And I would always suggest a 600 micro. That's plenty enough. Your honey will get crystal clear with a 600 micro. You can pay $65, $75 for one of these stainless steel jobs. I work with these. They're plastic, and I only get $8 for them. You can get several of them and switch them out. Sometimes the mesh here will get locked with, as you see, cappings, and with these, boy, you just take one out and put a new one in, and they're easy to clean up. So you can work with these. Now, a lot of people say, well, they fit all the way down in the bucket. Yeah, they do, and you can't fill the bucket all the way up. But what I do, right here where you see the lid, I cut a bucket right there. I stick it in top of the other bucket, put that in it, and guess what? it never reaches up to the filter, so it can work if you just do it the right way. But anyway, you'll need that for your extracting as well. And of course, as far as also harvesting honey, you want to clean your cappings wax for later use. This is the best wax you're going to ever get out of your hives. It's only been in the hive for 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4 if you wait till the end of the season. So it is very, very good wax to work with as far as cosmetics and things like that. So this is a very important product here. A lot of people, once they get done with it, they wash it with water and let it dry. I really don't like to do this. They'll just push it down in the water and rinse it out, this, that, and the other, to wash the honey away. I tend to like to let the bees do it. These are big trays here. They're about 4 feet long. I think they're about 1.5 feet wide, about 4 inches deep. They're just full of cappings wax. And if you put that out there, the bees have cleaned it up quite well for you. And to me, it leaves a little bit of a honey infusion within the wax, and which I like to say that I'm putting in my cosmetic products. So this is a good way to do that, is let the bees clean the cappings wax up for you. And it's as clean as it can be, ready to go to the filter. So this will be a way to do it.
Works well. Yeah.
I don't know if this is going to work. I'm going to try it. I don't. Let's see. Let me see if I can make this work. I've got a little video to show you. I know you can't see the sound, but what I would use the bees also to, it's all pretty, oh well. It worked on my,
Skinny supers.
I know, it worked on my computer, but as you can see.
We can tilt our head.
Here, it's a good way to let the bees clean up your honey supers. They'll make them spotless, and then you can go ahead and store them away. I store all mine away from the winter. I know a lot of you leave them on there to leave the bees some of the honey they brought in. But anyway, those skinny supers actually are not as skinny as this.
Are those frames?
But anyway, that's a good way to let the bees clean those up as well. As you can see, there's also the equipment if you've got your uncapping
Where's the
tank.
frames?
Any of that out there, just set it out. The bees have cleaned it up and it's open water. And then all I do after that is I normally rinse mine out with hot water, dry them out, and they're ready to go for the next thing. But this is a good way to let your bees clean it up. Types of honey we get around here is, of course, light, amber, and dark. Now, if you're one of those people that don't do but one extract in a year, you're not going to probably get all three, light, amber, and dark. I normally start extracting about the 1st of May. That's when I get my very light honey. I don't have a light honey here because it's about a shade or two lighter than this one. I didn't have a picture I could find to put up there. And of course, this is a dark honey over here. The light honey and the amber is going to taste similar, but the light honey has a much stronger floral taste to it. It's really a beautiful honey. Once I get into the amber, which is what I see in May, then it has a less floral taste to it. As soon as I get into the honey that's coming in June, it's a much darker honey, loses the floral taste altogether, and gets a lot stronger. And I know at the markets we go to, I have people searching all three of them, and they're disappointed when I'm out of one of them. So if you'll take a look at your hives, and if you've got time, then try extracting when all three are there. But you're going to have to start pulling the first part of May to get the light honey. Otherwise, normally, and the bees are going to mix it up if you don't take it out. I mean, if you wait and take it out all at the end of June, you're pretty much going to have all dark honey. They're good to mix it. Sometimes you might have to look for it, and you can find a little light honey. The other thing we get in this area, of course, is sourwood honey. This is what the sourwood tree looks like. If you ride up and down 400, you'll see tons of them blooming right now with the sourwood trees. But unfortunately, right now, the sourwood trees have been blooming here now for about, in my yard, for about almost 3 weeks. And they get mixed in with the wildflower, so you cannot get a mono honey, or you cannot, I never see any taste of sourwood in wildflower honey around here. Best to take your bees up to North Georgia. You can get into North Carolina, Tennessee, South Carolina, pretty much in the Blue Ridge Mountains there. If you get your bees above 2,000 feet in elevation, you'll get a real good mono tasting of sourwood honey. Anything below that, you have a good chance of picking up something different because you've got still some wildflower blooming, a lot of mimosa, crepe myrtles. There's several other things that are going too, so that's going to mix in. It doesn't take much of it to get mixed into your sourwood honey to not have a pure tasting sourwood honey. And if you look at it, when it's as pure as it can get, it's almost, this looks a little dark. It ages as the year goes on. But good sourwood honey is sort of clear, but it has a real good sort of lavender rose tint to it. But those are some good honeys you can get around here. And the only honeys you can get around here. You do have another next flow in the fall. Typically, I'll leave that to the bees. Most of that honey, especially with the goldenrod, to me, it's an awful tasting honey. In fact, when the bees start bringing it in, you can smell it. It's like rotten eggs in the bee yard. But anyway, those are the only honeys you can get. 3 types of wildflower in this area, and also a sourwood. If you move your bees a little, I think you can get up as around LJ and you start bringing it in with that. All right, honey with comb. You know, a lot of people just, this is not fancy, but if they want combed honey, they'll just take any comb they got. It doesn't have to be pretty to have combed honey. You still have the same situation of just putting some comb in a jar and filling it up with honey. I know I saw a few things on Facebook. Somebody was asking about that. They thought, you know, you got to cut it this way, you got to cut it. Yeah, you can, and you can cut it, make it pretty, just like this one over here. But you know, this one is just as good as this one. It's just not as fancy, and you're not going to many of the ribbons off of it, that's for sure. As you can see, comb tends to float. A little secret, if you're doing this one is on the change of it, because you're just stuffing different combs in there. But on this one particularly, if you drop a little hot wax right in your jar before you insert your comb and put it down there real quick before it dries, it will pretty much most times stay there. But as soon as you pick up the comb and get some of it, it's going to break loose. So it's just there for the initiation when it's looking pretty in the jar. Maybe you want to try to get a blue ribbon. There are other types of combed honey. Of course, you've got squares, you've got rounds, and you can cut your own. As you see here, just by freelance, or there's tools you can buy that you can make the cutting. They've even got applications out now, so you can pick out the frame whether you want round ones or square ones, and put them in that, and the bees do a pretty good job of putting it there for you. So in that way, it's a little easier to take out. So you can do that any way you want, but that's combed honey, and yes, there's a good chance of getting all that. Next time we'll look at creamed honey, whipped honey, set honey. Actually, set honey is a pretty good word for all of it. There is a difference between creamed honey and whipped honey. Of course, creamed honey, what we're going to be doing there is crystallizing it. We make the honey do what it naturally does when it sits on the shelf too long and crystallizes. And normally, the only thing we're doing with that is 100% honey still. We're just making it spreadable. So it doesn't run off a piece of toast, a biscuit, or something like that. Put it on a peanut butter sandwich. And it gives it a real good, I don't know, it's like a candy flavor to it. It just really tastes well with that. So there's a lot of ways to put different products in it too, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But as far as whipped honey, basically it's not the same. That's pretty much incorporating air into it with some type of mixer or something like that. It's not going to be as solid or set. As you can see, it's going to be a little foamy. It's going to be a little bit like whipped cream and its consistency. And it's not going to have the same type of flavor. And it is not consistent. It can turn back to crystallized honey. It can turn back to a liquid state pretty easy. Where creamed honey, depending on the conditions you keep it in, once it's creamed, and it will not turn back. So that's a big difference in the two. And here are some pros and cons about it. For us, I'm not gonna, as you know, heard in the past, I don't like to read my slides word for word, so if you do, you might learn something that I don't talk about. So anyway, here is, we're talking about the production process and how we achieve that, the consistency of cream honey, the textures you can read, flavor, and of course you can add flavors too, depending on what you want to do. And as I talked about, the stability is a lot better with cream honey versus cooked honey. And of course, when you're making cream honey, you can pasteurize it, or you can have it raw. I like to do it raw cream honey. What happens with pasteurized honey, what we're doing here, this is a little duplication, pretty much saying what we pretty much talked about, and I'll get into it in a minute with pasteurized and non-pasteurized or raw cream honey. But the difference is of course, we're going to take our normal honey, and if this is fresh out of the hive, you can pretty much say it doesn't have any crystals to it. If it has any crystals in it at all, it's going to give you a difficulty, and you're going to have to heat your honey up to get rid of those crystals. There's where you're getting into sometimes pasteurized honey. A lot of people will just go ahead, and you'll see that in a minute. And as I said, I don't sometimes keep up with my slides. But a lot of people will go ahead and heat their honey up to about 150, 155 degrees for 15 minutes. They pasteurize their honey. That's a guarantee that there is no crystals in that honey. So now they can crystallize the honey and have it mimic the starter that they use. So anyway, that's what you do. But with raw honey, you don't do that. And but once you've made sure that all the crystals are out of there, you've got to get your honey back down to at least 75, 65 degrees before you insert your cream honey. And then you're not going to muck up the whole program there. Pasteurized cream honey, as I said, get it up to 155 degrees, 15 minutes. You've nuked it and completely, and it's at that point it's sugar syrup. It's no longer. So you're not creating cream honey. To me, you're creating cream sugar syrup. In all situations, you got to keep your honey under a 90 to 95 degrees. If you got fresh honey out of the hive, you can pretty much say that it's probably not got many crystals on it. If you get into a lot of privet around here and things like that, and that stuff can crystallize 2 weeks out of the hive. So you have to be a little careful. But be real careful when you're heating this up to get rid of your crystallization. I know a lot of the heat blankets that we buy, honey bucket blankets, whatever you want to call them, unless they've got a thermostat on them, they heat the honey up far higher than it should go, and you're pasteurizing your honey. I don't know if you tested your blanket, but my blanket pasteurizes my honey if I leave it on the bucket too long. So if you're going to do that and try to get rid of all the crystals in there, you better make sure that you don't have that thermostat there and that you check the honey on a regular basis to make sure you're not bringing it up to the temperature that's going to pasteurize it. Of course, in step number 3 next, you'll add your seed cream honey. Ann and I are still using the seed honey we got 15 years ago up in Maine. We bought it off the shelf at what was the name of the store? Anyway, doesn't matter. But anyway, and I have to give it her credit. I said, I don't know why this stuff is so good. But I tell you what's the best cream honey I ever tasted in my life. And we brought that home, one 10-ounce jar, 12-ounce jar. And from that, we've been for 15 years making our cream honey. We keep that seed from that original batch. But anyway, what you want to do, you want to take honey that you think is best. And when I say best, you want to find a honey that's smooth like peanut butter, that you cannot taste the crystal on your tongue. It's like granular sugar. And you want to add that as your seed. And you want to add it once your cream honey is under 70 degrees. The guide is usually 10 to 15 parts of raw honey to 1 part of seed honey. I like to do 10. It just seems to set up a little better. 1 part of my seed honey to 10 parts of the raw honey I'm going to crystallize. And of course, once you have mixed your seed in there, I don't make a lot of, I make a lot of different cream honeys, but not in a big batch. The only big batches I do is I do a regular one, which has no flavoring in it, and then I do cinnamon cream honey. Normally what I like to do when I mix my seed in there, I like to let it sit at least 24 hours before I start pulling it. It gives it a chance for some of the bubbles to float to the top, because as you mix your seed in there, you're going to incorporate a lot of bubbles in there, and the bubbles are going to be in the top of the jar when it finally settles. So I usually let it sit there 24 hours. I'll, at that point, pull out the original without flavoring, and then what I'll do is mix in my flavoring that I'm going to do. A lot of times I'll let that sit there another 24 hours. As long as you pull this within 48 hours, you're going to get it in the jar well before it begins to set up with that. So anyway, and of course, once you get that in the jar, I normally like to move it to about a 50 to 55 degree situation for several weeks. Normally it'll set up in about 10 days in most cases. If you're in the summertime, then that can be difficult. Then you have to go to a refrigerator or something like that. Tends to make the honey a little harder than normal if you just let it set up in a normal 50 to 55 degrees. Typically we'll make ours in the wintertime, and I'll just set it out in the garage. When my garage starts staying around 50 to 55 degrees, works out perfect. So that's a good way to do it. Once you get your honey set up, as I said, cream honey is stable as long as you don't break it up to about, and this really depends on the type of honey you're looking at. I think it's on a later slide, but wildflower honey that we get around here, typically when it gets up around 74, 75 degrees, it's going to start loosening up, and it's going to get soft with the temperature. Once it loosens up, it's going to be difficult with wildflower honey to get it back hard again. You can get away from that by using clover honey. We'll look at that in a minute. I've got somewhere along the line. But when the honey is finished, of course, it will be firm, and you can easy to see. You just tilt the jar sideways, and if it's not rolling out, then it's set up. If it's still rolling out, set it back down and come back and check in another week or two. As I said, if you get it above 75 degrees, if it's made with wildflower honey, more times than not, it's going to begin to loosen up, and even the top rim of it can, a quarter to 1/8 inch, can become liquid honey again. As I said, if you like what you're working with, the best thing to do is always keep some seed honey. That's the first, when I mix up my cream honey every year, the first I pull is my seed honey for next year, and I stick it away. And that way, I always have a nice, smooth cream honey, other than having to go every year and say, okay, I gotta buy some more seed honey, and I gotta start looking for it. So first you pull off, if you like the honey you're doing, save some, and then you have your seed year after year. It will not go bad. And of course, as I talked about some flavors, and here's one good note to look at. When you're using light honey, you're going to have cream honey that is light. If you're using darker wildflower honey, it's going to be dark. It's going to be darker for you. And of course, you can add flavors like strawberry, cinnamon, coffee, maple, peach. Those are all good ones. I have some of those. I have some strawberry over there. I have peach, cinnamon, some of it, I think a few others, sourwood, that you could sample, see if you like those flavors. But, as I said, wildflower is not as consistent as some of the others. If you want to have a real consistent cream honey that's not going to turn back real quick, is go with clover honey. It crystallizes much quicker. It's going to be a beautiful light flavor, and it will stand the temperatures. I have had it go up to 78, 80 degrees, and it doesn't budge from being crystallized honey. So it works a lot better. Or any honey that's high in glucose. That's your secret of making a cream honey that's going to be sustainable in a warmer temperature. And of course, if you want, I don't like to use these flavors that come out of a bottle. If you want to do that, you can order that from this company here. They have some beautiful flavors. They work well in cream honeys. I tend to like to use natural flavors. My strawberry and peach is made from dehydrated strawberries and peaches. And sometimes you have some little chunks in there if you don't grind it up into a powder. Best to get it to a powder. If you get it to a powder, then you don't have those little lumps in there. But they taste good too, so you're welcome to go over and try some. As far as whipped honey, as I said, it's more or less just incorporating air into it. And then once you incorporate that air into it, you can do the same thing as you're doing with cream honey. You can add your flavors and keep it to that. Really simple to do with whipped honey. Infused honey. And basically what we're doing there is we're just taking honey, and it's always best if you're infusing honey to keep the natural flavor of the honey and to really be keen on picking up the flavor of the agent you're infusing it with. It's better to stay with a light or amber wildflower or any type of other light honey. Clover honey works real good. And there are others that are real light. The darker the honey, the more it's going to cover up your agent that you're infusing it with. And of course, it's just a matter of taking the product that you want to infuse it with, and you can leave it in the honey, say from 2 to 6 weeks or so. You might test it often, maybe once a week, to see if it has picked up the flavor you want. The longer it stays in there, normally the stronger it will get with that flavor. When it reaches the point that you want, if you want to maintain that, then you can take it out, strain it out, and you can strain it out really easy. If you want to just keep it in there like that, because it's pretty, it's going to get a little stronger and stronger, that's okay too. You can leave it in there. The only thing you want to worry about in infusing honey, when you're infusing honey, if you're using something that has a high water content, it's going to ferment your honey. And that's going to change the taste of it completely. I do not like fermented honey. So what I do with anything that I'm going to infuse, normally if it's got a high water content, I'll dehydrate it. Take all the water out of it. And then I'll put it in there, infuse it. It's going to plump back up when the water content of honey, but it's not going to cause it to ferment. So you want to think about that. If you don't, some people like fermented honey, and you can find a lot of infused fermented honey on the marketplace. So it's just a matter of what you want, but it is going to change the taste of your honey from that. But anyway, that's not what you can do with infusing, and I will let you do there. Here are some of the flavors that I see more popular in the market. I actually do hot honey where I infuse it with jalapenos and habaneros mixture. As I said, I'll dehydrate those before I put them in there. A lot of people say they love lavender honey. I can't stand it. Nasty tasting. Same thing with ginger. Elderberry is not bad. Lemon and some of these other raspberry is not so bad either. Depending on the herb that you put in it, it's like that. Rosemary over there. I just can't go there. But anyway, a lot of people like that. But there's a lot of things you can do. This is what you want to do with your honey harvest this year. It's experiment and see what you like. Not what I like, but what you like. Lotion bars, let's get on to that. Lotion bars and lip balms. They're very similar in preparation. I just do very little between the two. There are a lot of simple recipes out there. This is the one I use. It's not as simple as a lot of them. Where I differ, most everybody uses a 1/3 beeswax. They use something like shea butter or cocoa butter. I like to use shea butter in mine. I don't like the cocoa butter flavor that it gives it. And then I go with 1/3 almond oil. I like to put some vitamin E in there. It makes them a little richer than the lip balms. And of course the honey. And then I put 1 to 2 tablespoons of jojoba oil. It just makes them a little nicer if you do that. And of course what you do is melt all those products together. My hand is cramping holding this thing. And then you're ready to go. And once you get them all melted together, then you get a pour. There's a little apparatus just like this you can buy. These jigs will hold 50 tubes, and of course you just pour them in, and if you're not accurate, it's going to catch on the top, and that's okay. They have a little scraper that comes with them, and with this scraper, you can lift up all the excess that's laying on the top of that, melt it down, and put it in something that's not filled up if we want to. What?
Got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
A third what? 1/3 of what? Or is it just depending on?
Just
the size
equal
of it?
parts of those three things.
Equal parts?
But, so that messes up the half teaspoon.
That's
Right.
that's
One
my
time
question.
we're-
That's my question.
And then two, if that makes up my 100%, and to my 100%, I'll just add a couple of teaspoons of that and a couple of teaspoons of that. Did that answer it? No, that could be, yeah, it could be anything. That could be spearmint, it could be chocolate, orange, peppermint. You can actually do anything you want to with this recipe, and it depends on what you like. I've worked and experimented with it, and this is, to me, what I like, and I found it sells. Now, I have some people say, oh, I don't like shea butter, I've got to have cocoa butter. But it's about 10%, so I said, okay, 90% likes the shea butter. Yes,
Then
ma'am.
how big are these batches that you're making?
What's that?
How big are the batches that you're making?
Normally, what I normally do with the lip balm, and I start off with probably about a couple of gallons. And here's what I do, and I'll explain that as I go along. I put this mixture together, and as I said in the beginning, they're very similar, the lotion bars and the lip balms. I'll put this together and I'll make up a bunch of it with this particular recipe. And then I'll pour all my, I'll pour a cup at a time, or 2 cups, usually about a cup and a quarter will fill up 50 tubes. So I'll pour for about a cup and a quarter, and I'll put my scent in it, and I'll fill up that, and I'll do all the lip balms. Once I get all the lip balms I want, we do, I don't know what, 10 flavors? 8 or 10, something like that.
Yeah.
Different scents. Once I pour all those up, I still got a lot of mixture left. So now at that point, I'll move on. If after I fill all these tubes up that I want, go on, whatever, I'll move on, and I'll get to it in a minute. Of course, with the lip balms, you can put them in many different things. I've tried. I don't know what I did.
Everybody, I hope everybody's lips are moisturized now.
I didn't do that. But anyway, once I looked at all the different things, I have tried these little round containers, I've tried the little tins. I've tried a lot of different things. 9 times out of 10, somebody wants a tube. There you go. That wasn't me, right?
No, it was not.
I'm good at accepting the responsibility, so if it was me, I would have done it. Anyway, I've tried a lot of these different things. The tubes are the best. You know, you can try these other things, but a lot of these things sit on the counter with the tubes, and they go really fast. We'll go through 50 and then have to do another 50 of each, you know, as we go on. But as I was talking about, once I get into lotion bars, and they come in a lot of different shapes, you can mold them a lot of different ways. I'm almost not doing these much anymore, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But what I do, I take that mixture that I have now, and I sweeten them a little bit, because I keep adding enough to where whatever I added in these 2 products, I now add enough pure golden jojoba oil that it'll balance this out. And now I've got a real rich solution with jojoba oil for my lotion bars. Did I lose you completely there? Only thing I've done is I made this 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 with this sweet almond oil. But now what I did, I do a calculation. I don't have the calculation here, depending on how much I made a gallon or 2 gallons. And I had to make a calculation, see how much pure whole oil I need to pour in there to change this mixture to where this is pretty much 1/3, 2/3. It just makes it a little richer. The rest of the stuff is pretty much the same. And of course, if I don't forget to mention, Bulk Apothecary is a great place to order this. It's a family operation. And I tell you what, they're the best. You don't do anything wrong, they always do everything right for you. So anyway, that's where I get my products from, it's this type of stuff here. But this is what I do with the lotion bars. I pretty much quit doing lotion bars, and what I've done, once I get to this stage, what I'll do is I'll keep adding golden whole oil until it's about 40% of this mixture, real strong with whole oil. What it's going to do is loosen it up. It makes it not quite so hard as a lotion bar is, or a lip balm. And it makes it a little softer. You can actually dig some of it out. And I tell you what, I sell much more of those than I do lotion bars. And they're much easier to work with because you just pour those in a tin or in a little glass jar rather than have it in a mold. I like it a lot better. But anyway, that's the way I do those. And of course, you can put your lip balms or your lotion bars in a lot of different types of tins, bags or whatever, boxes. I usually use this tin. I use one with a window on the top. Yeah, I think I paid $1 for that. I pay a lot rather than selling a lotion bar for $5 or $6. I sell them for $8. But as I say, I'm sort of getting out of that. Looking at candles, of course, making candles can be simple, but it can be difficult with well. And of course, you can add scents, but you know, beeswax candles, when they are burning, they smell so good. They've got such a beautiful scent. Why add scents to them? Because they really, really will light up a room with a beautiful flavor. Anyway, here's a lot of the health benefits you can find from that, where you're looking for paraffin wax or a soy.